Hey guys, Mark here. David Cross, who's joining us today on today's podcast. He has a wonderful podcast called the Award Wieners Movie Review Podcast. It's an excellent show where they talk about Academy Award winners that won Best Picture, and they match it up with a Oscar Mayer hot dog recipe. It's a fantastic show. You should definitely listen to it. Give it a shot. Thanks. Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a dinosaur man, a T-Rex on the loose, and if you mess with him, he's gonna cook your goose. It's David Cross.
Rawr! What's going on, man?
Good, man. I mean, everything's different. It's a different game. Jump into the fire, jump into my brain. Dinosaur music inside my brain. Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna go insane. Feel the rumble, feel the roar, feel the music of the dinosaur. And then a prehistoric dude, king of the jungle coming after you, a T-Rex on the prowl, a reptile on the move. Better watch your step. I'm coming after you.
Do you know when I knew I would love this movie?
When?
When that song started playing.
Yeah, this was... So I had the menu on, and I think the movie ended and the menu came back on. And I just wasn't paying attention, and the song was just playing over and over. And I used to be in a band called the Brewskis, and we were terrible, and this sounds like a Brewskis song, but not as good, and we were really bad. So I knew this movie had something going for it. The director, you listen to the commentary of this movie, Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex. That guy he knew nothing about that song.
He didn't know anything about a lot of parts of the film.
Yeah.
Which is insane. He's like, I made this thing for $1 million and then I gave it away and that's it. I haven't thought about it in 25 years.
So you're a director, right? And you've had a couple box office flops that haven't done too well. Mac and Me, Ice Pirates, movies like that. Someone calls you up and says, in 3 weeks, I have a Tyrannosaurus Rex model for 1 week. I need you to write the script, cast, find locations, costume, and get this thing ready to go in 3 weeks. Would you do it?
Yes. 100%. I mean, the thing about this guy is he seems like this type of guy, he'll just get anything done. It doesn't matter. He's like, and he's realistic. Because when I watched the director's commentary and his interview on the Blu-ray, he was basically like, I like money. I'll get this done.
He's like, I hadn't worked in a while. I'll get paid. I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. And to be frank, like the quality is pretty good.
I mean, the thing is, he had 3 weeks. So so Street Fighter, we just released one of the episodes, and I wrote about it for its 25th anniversary. It had a year to be written, shot, and put in theaters. That's a year. This one had, well, not to get put in theaters, but they had months to get ready for it. This one had 3 weeks to write a script and cast. Man, I would love it. You and I just sitting there hammering out a movie, and we're like, we don't have time. We have no time. And we just hammer out this movie, which, okay, this movie has a logic to it, correct? There is a ABC structure in this film.
Yes. There is a story arc, though whether that arc ends, I would quibble with.
Yeah. And I also love how in the commentary, which I think was really smart, he said that Stuart Raffles said, I am not going to shoot anywhere that's more than 20 miles from my house. So they drew a radius around his home and they just shot around there, like fires be damned that were happening. The T-Rex in the beginning, that's in a soundstage. So, I mean, they just used the soundstage as a warehouse. Very thrifty picture, I would say.
He's a super tactician. Like, listening to him talk, he's like, okay, I have to make a movie for $1 million. I have to do it as fast and cheap as possible, combine all the scenes in as many locations as possible. It's amazing. That might be more interesting to talk about, is just how they accomplish this feat.
I love in the Vinegar Syndrome. So you stayed up late and bought this at midnight, Black Friday. I got up early and bought this Blu-ray on Black Friday, so we both have the same one. And in the commentary, I thought it was really interesting how the guy leading the discussion asked Stewart, like, hey, did you have time to think? Or did the actors have alternate takes? He's like, no. he's like, they got like one take maximum because they had no time to shoot this movie.
Yeah.
But I just love, though, that he said, like, did your characters have chances? No. Get out there and act. 2 takes, maximum.
Yeah, so let's take a step back a little bit, Mark, and I want to tell you why I wanted to cover this film.
Because it's amazing?
Because, well, it came out, so we're doing the Gore cut of Tammy and the T-Rex, or Tammy and the Teenage T-Rex. This movie has like 5 names.
2 ends instead of 2. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but did you know anything about Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex?
No, I knew nothing about it at all.
And when the credits came up, were you confused?
Very confused.
Yes, I just thought, what? What is happening here? I don't get it.
I thought I was having a Berenstein Bear moment, and then I restarted the movie to look at the beginning credit. I was like, what? I thought this was Tammy and the T-Rex, and then I pulled out my phone and looked it up on my phone to like check Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, am I going crazy? Is this part of the joke?
And then it's Tammy. It's not Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex.
Yeah.
They had no time for this movie. I love it.
No time. But I wanted to do this movie because it sort of fits the cross section of things I love, which are B movies and horror movies. And I had never heard about it until a while back when I read an article on Bloody Disgusting. And they're like, this movie's great. And I was like, well, I like Bloody Disgusting and I love B movies, so let's do this. The crazy thing about this, Mark, is that when we went into this, I thought this was going to be a serious film. I had never seen it before. I didn't realize it was a horror comedy. So when it started, I was like, oh, whoa, this is not what I thought I was going to be into.
Yeah, I mean, so there's some, this sounds weird, right? But there's a decent amount of gore, but there's just some pretty nasty scenes. So Paul Walker, if you're listening to this, you've seen the film. So do we need to do you want to do a quick breakdown so we can get that out of the way so we can just jump in and that. All right, you want to knock it out in like 40 words or less?
Oh yeah. Okay. Denise Richards' boyfriend has his mind dropped into an animatronic T-Rex, and they have to get his body back and take vengeance on the gang that beat him up and caused it, essentially.
This is a rough world that this movie takes place in. The villain in this film, Tommy, he is abusive. He's a murderer. He is responsible for death. He's showing up whenever he wants. He's basically has free range to be evil. Then you have evil scientists who are murdering people and taking them from the morgue to transplant their brains, and they know that the people funding it are going to love them. This is a very screwed up world that this movie takes place in.
Yeah, but it has its own logic.
Oh, yeah, it totally has its own logic. I just love how you're thinking about this world, and you're like, geez Louise, people break into homes and drop people off in animal preserves and lions murder you?
Well, that's your problem, Mark. You're thinking too hard. This is a movie that you just accept.
Oh, no, I absolutely did. And so, like, this is really tough. These kind of movies are tough to talk about as well. And the only reason why is it's not so – there's no glaring mistakes in this film because it had such a short, truncated production schedule, and it had no time to be created. So I think it should be applauded more for having a logical framework and getting all the shots needed to make it work. But then it's also so silly that it's like Aquaman. And Aquaman is one of the most insane movies ever made, but it knows it is. So you can't really call it insane because it's just what it is. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'm glad you brought that up because I also was having a hard time thinking about what we were going to talk about this. And so I was going through the extras on the Blu-ray, and I pinpointed this moment when the director said, comedy is the most forgiving movie genre. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think it's interesting. I think I agree with him. I find it very difficult to talk about any comedy in this podcast or my own podcast. So whenever we talk about comedy, I'm like, it's funny or it's not. I don't have a lot else to say. If a comedy has a story arc that's not plot driven, it becomes a dramedy, and then it's more drama than comedy. So I struggle a little bit.
I think with that, it's just kind of, oh yeah, that joke was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That joke, that was a good bit, and that was a good gag. And they all kind of follow the same structure. So yeah, you're right. It's definitely hard unless it is a bonkers comedy. Like something like an action comedy or a horror comedy. I think those are easier to talk about. Like Tucker and Dale. Actually, I'd have a hard time talking about Tucker and Dale because I just love that movie. But I would say like Big Trouble in Little China, that has a lot of comedy aspects into it, but it's so layered and weird that it's worth talking about.
It's more like an action movie with comedy elements.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of easier. But I don't know, man. There's something I want to talk to you about, and that's the fact that Denise Richards, I think she's really good in this movie. She got cast probably the week beforehand, but what makes this movie good is how earnest she is. She plays everything 100% straight. And I think I liked her, and Paul Walker's kind of funny in this movie too. They're just two, like, what did he, innocent, nice kids. And I don't know, I just like the way, like, they are in some absurd situations, but they play it really well. Did you get that from Denise Richards?
I did. I absolutely got that. She plays it straight. It's like there's two tracks. There's the characters who play 100% real, and then there's the audience representation, which is like the mad scientist and Byron who are hamming it up. So you could associate like which side you want to go with. You're like, do I want to take this seriously? Okay, it's Denise Richards and Paul Walker and the animatronic T-Rex, or it's the mad scientist.
Like there's scenes where Denise Richards has to do charade with a T-Rex, and she does it like you almost believe it. And it's listen, you're gonna be shaking your head, but I just really like the way that she listen, you have no time to prepare, no time for anything. Here's an outfit, and now play charades with a giant T-Rex. But I think she did a good job.
She did. That's the thing. I can't make fun of her performance. It's very sweet. And earnest. And
Paul Walker too. I think he's just funny when he's like, "Ow, that hurts." Like he's just very. That's what I like the most about Paul Walker. I think when he was around, I think he does the best freakouts in any film. So you watch him freaking out in movies, he has the best freakout that you could possibly imagine. All right, so you watch Running Scared, right?
Okay.
When he's just running around scared, he freaks out really well. You watch movies like Joyride, he just does a really good job yelling and looking surprised and actually pulling off that something is horrible is happening. Like when he's driving, I think he does a great job of kind of pulling off the excitement of that. Into the Deep, Into the Blue, I think, with his scenes. I don't know, I really like the way that there's an earnestness to his performances, and I thought he was like one of the best at freakouts. But not like a Nick Cage freakout, more of like a believable freakout.
A believable.
Yeah.
Cage is not good at the believable freakout. Yeah, you're right.
But he's good, and I don't know, I dug him in this movie. I mean, I like all these characters. Like Billy is a character from a horror movie, right? I always in this movie, Billy is Denise Richards' ex-boyfriend, and he's a murderer. Basically, he is an out of high school guy who just steamrolls everybody, and his buddy is Sean Whalen Weasel. I don't know if you guys know him, but he was the serial killer in Jury Duty. He was one of the crew in Twister. He was the paper boy in Batman Returns. But he was Roach in People Under the Stairs.
There you go. That's the one I was waiting for. And he was in the Aaron Burr commercial. He was the guy with the peanut butter in his mouth.
Oh, wow. That's but he's been in so many movies, and I love when he dies, he just drops meat onto the ground. Did you hear his interview?
No, that's the one I didn't get to.
So yeah, he had just gotten married, and they had this massive trip planned with his family, but then he got this role, so he didn't go and do it. And he didn't know what it was. He showed up on set. There was one trailer for everybody. He said everybody on set was super cool. He loved Paul Walker. And his death scene when Weasel is peeing on a T-Rex foot and gets his chest burst open, they just gave him a handful of guts and he just dropped them on the ground.
You could see it I went back and rewound that to see it, and he literally just is cupping it and moves his hand and they just slap the ground.
But that's perfect.
It's so good.
Isn't it? That's funny. I don't know. That's a good bit right there. I love the stories he told. And also, did you listen to Billy telling the story about the testicular standoff between him and Paul Walker?
Yes.
Oh, that's so. He's like, they tried to give us giant cups, and we're like, well, that doesn't work. And then they both wanted to quit the film because no one was telling them what to do. So then they just both didn't wear cups, and then they just sat there squeezing each other's, dicks for like a full day.
Well, we're on the.
And then he was wearing oh, what a weird scene.
It's really weird, but also amazing. So there's several moments in this movie where I actually paused and grabbed my head because I was like, what am I watching and why have I never watched this before? My girlfriend was sitting next to me and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm the happiest I've been in months.